There is a horrifying custom in the remote and impoverished areas of Somalia. They think women's lower body is dirty. So when the girls in the family grow up to the age of 3, they must undergo a special ceremony of the tribe. On that day, the mother will carry her daughter to a deserted mountain. Then the elders of the tribe will perform the operation. She will use a rusty blade to take away the girl's female characteristics without disinfection and any anesthesia. Finally, the girl will be thrown into the rubble for a day. If she is not killed by the pain before dark, then she can be taken home to continue to be raised. Wallace is the child who survived this cruel ceremony. She thought that her pain would only be experienced once when she was 3 years old, but when she got her first period at the age of 12, her ordeal had just begun. On the first day after her period, her father sold her to a nomadic old man next door. But what she got back for her family were only 5 skinny camels. Facing her mother's helplessness, Wallace was unwilling to marry an old man. So that night, she secretly said goodbye to her brother and fled from here. That night, Wallace ran for an unknown period of time. She didn't dare to stop until dawn. She lost her straw sandals and her feet were worn out, and she could only eat the plants on the roadside to fill her stomach. A few days later, Wallace finally came to the city after going through hardships. She found out her grandmother's home with limited information. Grandma felt very distressed to see her like this, but she was helpless because of the opposition of her family. In order to let her granddaughter survive, Grandma could only apply for a passport for her. Then she used her connections to secretly send her to England to work as a maid. The moment the plane took off, Wallace's miserable childhood was hidden in her heart. During her time as a maid in the UK, Wallace spent her youth in the basement except for being ordered in cleaning every day. This seemingly stable life lasted for 6 years. Until this day, a report in the news broke his peace again. Because war broke out in his hometown of Somalia, all of them who were abroad had to be repatriated. This news was a bolt from the blue for Wallace. She didn't want to go back to that dirty hometown. In order to survive, she had no choice but to run away again. But facing this country where she couldn't speak the language, she didn't know if she could survive. Wallace could only fill her stomach by picking up garbage every day. This went on for a long time, until one day when Wallace was taking a rest in the toilet, she met a woman. Mary was obviously very resistant to Wallace's face. She was angry and wanted to call the police to arrest Wallace, but Wallace couldn't understand her roar at all. She could only try to reply in the only English she knew.
Today is your lucky day. Is it?
And it was this kind reply that made the already irritable Mary feel inexplicably fond of her. She could see that Wallace was really pitiful and had nowhere to go. So Mary decided to take her in for one night. What Wallace didn't know was that Mary's appearance would become an important turning point in her life. He felt sorry for her. The next day, when Mary was still sleeping, Wallace got up early. She cleaned the room spotlessly. She even brought Mary a cup of coffee. Wallace's behavior made Mary feel warm. Before leaving, she was very happy. Mary recommended a place for Wallace to work. Soon after, Wallace successfully found a job in a pizza shop. For a period of time afterwards, she worked diligently during the day. After work at night, she went to see her only friend, Mary. Unconsciously, she had already regarded Mary as her own family, because Wallace's English level was very poor. In order to communicate normally with people in a foreign country, she had to start learning English seriously. Although her level improved quickly, she was always reminded by her boss because she didn't like to smile. But it was her face that rarely smiled that attracted the attention of a diner that day. The other party said that he was a photographer. He was now looking for a new face as a model, and Wallace's three-dimensional facial features were exactly what he needed.
You might want to hold on to that, actually.
Due to the feudal ideas instilled in her since childhood, Wallace always kept a distance from men. She originally wanted to throw the business card away directly, but thinking of the other party's words, she took the business card back. But what she didn't know now was that this business card would completely change her life. The girl who escaped from the remote feudal tribe came to the bar for the first time. Watching her friend dancing to her heart's content, she seemed like an outsider. Just then a man approached her. The other party was very handsome and gentlemanly. The two chatted easily. Then the man invited Wallace to dance. This time Wallace did not refuse. But as the music became softer, the two began to get closer and closer. This feeling forced Wallace to flee. In the mindset she had been instilled with since childhood, there should be no physical contact with men before marriage, because they thought it was shameful and impure. That night she stood by the river for a long time. She was ashamed of what she had done tonight. But what she didn't expect was that when she returned home, she happened to see her best friend Mary and her boyfriend making out. This scene made her very angry. She thought her best friend was a slut.
A respectable woman does not do that.
A respectable woman can have fun and still be respectable.
No, a respectable woman does not do that.
Does not do what? Hey, Waris? Can't say it, you know.
She told Mary that only women who had been circumcised were pure, but Mary obviously didn't know what she meant by circumcision. When Wallace showed her her wound, Mary was completely shocked, because there has always been a custom in the feudal tribe of Wallace. When girls are 3 years old, their female features must be cut off by the elders of the tribe. It can only be reopened by the husband at marriage. They regard this cruel custom as the purity of women. It was not until this moment that Wallace finally realized that not every woman would be sent to be circumcised by her mother. Not all women are like her, but it was too late to know all this. The psychological and physical damage will follow her for the rest of her life. One day not long after, the sequelae of circumcision caused Wallace to have severe abdominal pain. When Mary sent her to the hospital, even the doctors were stunned. They dared not imagine what kind of torture the woman in front of them had suffered. Because Wallace's English was not very good, the attending doctor specially found a nurse from the same country as Wallace to translate. But facing this woman who was devastated by circumcision, the nurse's translator seemed to be rubbing salt into her wounds. His words were like a sharp knife humiliating Waris. An invisible pressure made Wallace breathless. She doesn't know what to do. What will happen to her future? On the street, when she passed by a shop window, the women with wrapped faces inside caught her attention. They, like Wallace, seemed to have been kidnapped by an invisible morality and their right to live. Even showing their faces was a luxury for them. Wallace recalled her miserable childhood. She had experienced countless dangers before escaping from that hellish tribe. Now she finally has a normal life. She doesn't want to give up her chance to be a normal woman. At this moment, she has made up her mind. She wants to change her fate. So she decisively turned back to the hospital. She had the operation accompanied by her good friend Mary. Although she could not recover to her most perfect appearance, but she would never suffer from the pain of circumcision again. After the operation, Wallace seemed to be reborn. She also had more smiles on her face than before, in order to have a better life. After being discharged from the hospital, she immediately found the photographer who gave her the business card. Although Wallace is very unfamiliar with photography, but under the guidance of photographer Donaldson, Wallace's model essence was still perfectly captured by his lens. Since his introduction, Wallace's modeling talent was instantly discovered by the company. Although she didn't know how to catwalk at first, but under a series of teachings from Donaldson, not only was she able to look directly into the camera with confidence soon, he even gradually developed a talent that surpassed other models. Because of Wallace's outstanding performance, the company decided to support her to go abroad to participate in competitions. This also means that she will have the opportunity to go out into the world and onto a bigger stage. Before leaving, Wallace used the first money she earned to buy a gift for Mary. Although the price of the gift was very expensive, but for Wallace, this is totally not enough to repay Mary. Just when she was confidently preparing to go abroad, an accident happened again at this critical moment. She once ran away to avoid being deported. This made her passport a piece of waste paper. This also meant that she had to miss the opportunity of the Paris fashion show. Just when she was desperate and thought that she was about to be deported again, the Immigration Bureau brought her good news. Because Wallace was a special case, the British Immigration Bureau gave her a limited residence permit. But Wallace knew that this was not a long-term solution, because she would be deported back to her country sooner or later. In order to obtain legal status and live in the UK, Wallace decided to get married with the handyman of the apartment. In this way, Wallace successfully obtained a legal status. During this period, in order to deal with the inspection of the Immigration Bureau, they could only pretend to be a very loving couple. Since having a legal status, Wallace can finally start normal work. As the business he is involved in becomes more and more high-end, the company's requirements for her are becoming more and more demanding. This time Donaldson asked her to take off her clothes for a photo shoot. But growing up in an environment oppressed by feudal thinking since childhood, this was a great challenge for Wallace. After a fierce inner struggle, she still chose to do it, because she knew very well. Only in this way could she completely overcome the shackles of feudal thinking since childhood. With Donaldson's encouragement, Wallace no longer felt ashamed. Wrapped in white satin, Wallace showed herself to the fullest under the flashlights. At the same time, she also proved to the world that she was fearless about life. One day not long after, Wallace finally waited for a permanent residence permit, and she finally got on the plane to Paris. At this time, nothing could restrain her anymore. At the International Fashion Week where big brands gathered, Wallace relied on her talent and outstanding figure. She walked out her charm under the spotlight. After this day, her stunning moments stood out among all the models. In an instant, Wallace became the subject of interviews with major media outlets, and that tragic childhood experience will slowly be made public. When a shepherdess transformed into a world supermodel, everyone was curious about how she did it. But when the real situation was made public, everyone was shocked by Wallace's experience. The reporter burst into tears after hearing Wallace's life story. She had never imagined that such a thing would happen in such a civilized era. After returning, she immediately published Wallace's story in a magazine. Once the magazine was published, it shocked the whole world. Even UNICEF paid close attention to it. For this reason, they specially invited Wallace to give a speech at the United Nations. Her tragic experience and privacy will be exposed to the world. This was a huge pressure for Wallace, but at this time, she did not retreat at all. because she knew that if she chose to escape, countless women would continue to suffer the nightmare of circumcision. Although she escaped from that nightmare desert, but there are still many girls who are still suffering from circumcision. So she must stand up. This film is adapted from real events and released in 2009. In the 1990s, many countries had this cruel tradition. Waris Dirie was the first woman to publicly talk about and oppose the custom of female circumcision. In 1997, the Secretary General of the United Nations appointed Waris Dirie as the United Nations Special Ambassador, specially responsible for combating this terrible feudal atrocity. Since the late 1990s, the cruel act of circumcision has been officially banned in many countries. But despite this, to this day, many girls are still suffering in many remote areas around the world. Most of them can only endure silently and spend their lives in the melting pot of modern society. Some cruel customs should be abolished. Everyone has the right to be the master of their own body. Don't let the flowers that are supposed to bloom wilt prematurely.